Most people do not lose power because they are weak. They lose it because they reveal too much to people who have done nothing to earn access to them. They speak too early, explain too much, confess too freely, and assume that openness creates safety. But in the real world, information is rarely neutral. In the hands of the wise, it becomes strategy. In the hands of the insecure, it becomes exposure. And in the hands of the wrong person, it becomes a weapon. There are things about your life that should never be handed over casually. Not because secrecy makes you dishonest, but because restraint makes you difficult to control. The moment people can map your fears, your ambitions, your wounds, your plans, and your emotional needs, they no longer have to guess how to influence you. They know where to apply pressure. They know what to flatter, what to threaten, what to delay, what to offer, and what to take away. And once that happens, your freedom is no longer fully your own. Machiavelli understood something about human nature that many people still refuse to accept. It is not enough to be good. It is not enough to be sincere. If you want to move through the world without being manipulated, diminished, or outmaneuvered, you must understand what must remain private. Power is not only built by what you do, it is preserved by what you refuse to disclose. This is why some people always seem to keep control of the room without talking much. It is why some individuals become impossible to read, difficult to pressure, and strangely respected even when they say very little. They understand that silence, used correctly, is not emptiness. It is armor, it is distance, it is discipline, it is leverage. The danger is that modern culture trains you to do the opposite. It tells you to share everything, explain yourself to everyone, and treat radical openness as moral superiority. It rewards emotional exhibition, public vulnerability, and the constant broadcasting of inner life. But what looks honest is not always wise. What feels relieving in the moment often becomes expensive later. There is a difference between being authentic and being strategically naked. One builds trust with the right people over time. The other hands over your internal blueprint before character has even been tested. And that blueprint matters, because people do not merely listen to what you say. They sort it, they remember it, they compare it, they file it away. Some do this unconsciously, others do it with chilling precision. They notice what makes you defensive. They notice what makes you eager. They notice what you crave, what you fear, what you are ashamed of, what you still have not healed from, what you desperately want to become, and what you are terrified of losing. They may smile while learning these things. They may nod sympathetically. They may even appear supportive. But information changes the balance between two people. The one who reveals everything often assumes closeness. The one who receives everything often gains position. This is not an argument for paranoia. It is an argument for sovereignty. It is a reminder that your inner life has value, and anything of value must be guarded. You do not hand strangers the keys to your house. You do not give casual observers access to your bank account. And yet many people hand over something even more valuable, the psychological code that unlocks them. So tonight, we are going to walk through 7 things you should never share with anyone carelessly if you want to maintain self-respect, emotional freedom, and strategic power. These are not random secrets. They are pressure points. Each one, if revealed too early or to the wrong person, creates openings through which manipulation can enter. Each one, when guarded, increases your stability, your clarity, and your authority, because the truth is simple. The world does not always punish weakness. Often it punishes transparency without discernment, and the more ambitious, sensitive, gifted, or emotionally deep you are, the more important this lesson becomes. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. Not everyone deserves the truth before they have proven they can carry it without turning it against you. The first thing you should never, Share lightly is your deepest long-term plan. There is a peculiar mistake people make when they begin to feel inspired. The moment they form a vision for their future, they want to announce it. They want witnesses. They want feedback. They want energy. They want someone to tell them that the dream is impressive, realistic, unlikely to succeed. So before the foundation is even laid, they begin speaking about the house. They describe the business they are going to build, the new identity they are stepping into, the money they intend to make, the city they plan to move to, the transformation they are about to undergo, the life they are preparing to claim. And usually, they mistake the emotional reward of talking for the progress of doing. Machiavelli would have recognized the danger immediately. A plan loses force when it is exposed before it has protection. The moment you reveal your future too soon, several things happen at once. First, you invite opinions from people whose imagination is smaller than your ambition. Second, you expose your timeline to those who may prefer your stagnation. Third, you create psychological pressure inside yourself, because now your identity becomes tied to public expectation rather than private execution. And fourth, you make yourself easier to obstruct. Many people assume sabotage always looks dramatic. They imagine betrayal as something theatrical, obvious, and openly malicious. But the most common sabotage is subtle. It comes in the form of doubt disguised as concern. It sounds like practical advice. It arrives as hesitation, sarcasm, low enthusiasm, selective skepticism, or carefully timed discouragement. Are you sure now is the best time? That sounds risky. People like us don't usually do things like that. I just don't want you to get your hopes up. These phrases are rarely delivered by enemies. They are often delivered by ordinary people whose comfort depends on your predictability. Your long-term plan disturbs people for reasons they may never admit, even to themselves. It forces them to compare their lives to yours. It threatens the emotional contract they had with the version of you that remained familiar, available, and manageable. If your plan succeeds, then the old relationship may no longer feel balanced. Your growth becomes evidence of their passivity. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your courage confronts their fear. So even good people may unconsciously resist what will elevate you. This is why silence around your long-term vision is not weakness. It is incubation. It is strategic concealment, while roots are still forming underground. Nature itself follows this principle. The seed does not announce itself before it has the strength to break the soil. Growth is hidden before it becomes visible. Development happens in darkness, long before the world sees the result. There is also another risk. When you talk too much about what you intend to become, your brain often receives a false sense of completion. Social psychology has shown that verbalizing goals can sometimes create premature satisfaction because the identity reward arrives before the labor has been earned. You feel seen as the person you hope to become, so urgency begins to leak away. The fantasy has already generated social value, and that weakens the necessity of action. In other words, exposure can make you feel accomplished before you have accomplished anything. Powerful people often seem reserved about what they are building, not because they have nothing in motion, but because they understand the fragility of early-stage momentum. They protect it from envy. They protect it from ridicule. But more importantly, they protect it from delusion. Too many voices can fracture conviction. Too many explanations can drain energy. Too much public anticipation can turn a clean mission into an anxious performance. Think of someone quietly preparing to leave a stagnant job, launch a brand, get in shape, move countries, end a dead relationship, or begin a new discipline. If they announce it to 10 people before they have even built the habits, those 10 people begin living inside the plan with them. Now every slow week feels embarrassing. Every delay feels public. Every adjustment feels like failure. But when a person works in silence, they keep the plan close enough to refine it without noise. They are free to fail privately, adapt intelligently, and emerge only when structure exists. This does not mean never telling anyone anything. It means your future should only be shared with people who have demonstrated loyalty, maturity, discretion, and the ability to support without contaminating. Such people are rare. Most of the time, your plan should be visible in your habits before it is audible in your mouth. The strongest posture is simple. Speak less, build more. Let the evidence arrive before the explanation. The world respects what is already moving far more than what is merely announced. And the less others know about your timing, your methods, and your destination, the less power they have to interfere with your direction. The second thing you should never share casually is your deepest emotional wound. People often believe that revealing pain creates intimacy automatically. It can create closeness, yes, but not always safety. There is a difference between being witnessed and being studied. There is a difference between someone caring about your pain and someone learning how your pain works. The distinction matters because your wound is not just a memory. It is an entry point into your emotional architecture. When someone knows the exact injury that shaped you, they gain insight into your sensitivities, your reflexes, your cravings, and the places where your judgment becomes vulnerable. If you were abandoned, they know you may tolerate too much to avoid losing people. If you were humiliated, they know respect may become an obsession. If you were neglected, they know attention can become a drug. If you grew up in chaos, they know stability may seduce you into trusting too quickly. If you were betrayed, they know suspicion and reassurance will both move you in predictable ways. Carl Jung understood that what remains unintegrated in the psyche continues to control behavior from the shadows. A wound you do not understand governs you unconsciously, but even a wound you do understand can still be exploited if placed in the hands of someone who lacks conscience. This is why healing requires discernment. Not everyone deserves access to the unfinished parts of you. Some people listen to your pain with tenderness. Others listen with strategic curiosity. They do not need to hurt you immediately. They simply need to know where hurting you would be effective if the relationship ever turned. That is how manipulation often begins. Quiet observation, emotional mapping, no sudden movement, just a patient understanding of where the pressure points are. And pressure points are valuable. Once someone knows the wound beneath your confidence, they understand how to destabilize you. They know which absence will make you chase. They know what criticism will cut deeper than it should. They know what kind of praise will keep you attached. They know what emotional dynamic can pull you back into old patterns. And if the relationship becomes competitive, resentful, or controlling, what once looked like empathy may reappear as leverage. Many people have experienced this without naming it. They told someone about their insecurity, their childhood pain, their previous heartbreak, their fear of being unworthy, their struggle with trust, or their loneliness. At first, the other person became gentler, closer, more attentive. It felt healing. But later, during conflict, the same knowledge returned in altered form. It appeared as weaponized silence, targeted criticism, withdrawal, comparison, subtle insults, or emotional withholding. The exact place that once received comfort became the place that now received pressure. That is why emotional privacy is not repression. It is stewardship. Your deepest wound should be shared only in spaces where character has been observed over time. The person must show consistency under frustration, not just warmth during peace. They must prove that they can hold truth without using it to gain position over you. Many cannot. Some are too immature. Others are too hungry for control. Some are simply too unconscious to be trusted with what is sacred. Machiavellian strategy is often misunderstood, the glorification of cruelty. But at its core, It begins with seeing human nature clearly rather than sentimentally. If you understand that people are mixed creatures capable of affection and envy, tenderness and self-interest, loyalty and opportunism, then you stop handing over your most vulnerable truths as if human goodness were guaranteed. You become more measured, less cynical, perhaps, but more exact. There is another reason to guard your wound. The more casually you narrate your pain, the more you may begin to mistake identity for a history. Some people become trapped inside the story of what hurt them. They repeat it so often that it becomes their primary lens on life. Their wound stops being something they are healing and starts becoming something they are performing. This attracts a certain kind of person: the rescuer, the controller, the manipulator, the one who senses that someone organized around pain will often accept emotional crumbs in exchange for momentary understanding. Your wound deserves dignity, not display. It deserves repair, not circulation. It deserves careful language, chosen timing, and worthy listeners. One of the most powerful things you can do is heal deeply enough that your old injury no longer functions as public currency, not because it did not matter, but because it no longer owns you. A disciplined person learns to speak of pain without placing their throat in someone else's hand. They can be honest without being exposed. They can be open without becoming readable. They can tell the truth in layers, allowing trust to be earned rather than assumed. That is power, not coldness, not denial. Measured revelation. Your pain is real, but your pain is also valuable information. Guard it accordingly. The third thing you should never share widely is how much you need something. Need is one of the most exploitable conditions in human life. The more visibly you need approval, love, money, opportunity, recognition, security, or partnership, the easier you become to negotiate against. Need compresses your standards. Need speeds up your decisions. Need makes you tolerate imbalance. Need clouds discernment, because urgency wants relief more than truth. This is one of the oldest dynamics in power. The person who appears less needy usually controls the tempo of the interaction. In business, negotiation, romance, politics, and status hierarchies, the one who can walk away always holds an invisible advantage. That does not mean they care less. It means their need is not exposed in a way that can be leveraged. The moment people sense that you desperately want something from them, the psychology changes. If you need their validation, they can withhold praise and keep you seeking. If you need their affection, they can become inconsistent and deepen your attachment through uncertainty. If you need the deal, they can force concessions. If you need the job, they can test your boundaries. If you need the audience, they can shape your behavior. If you need friendship, you may start laughing too hard, explaining too much, forgiving too quickly, and shrinking yourself to remain accepted. This is why Machiavellian power strategy places such importance on self-sufficiency, at least in appearance. You cannot always eliminate need, because you are human, but you can refuse to advertise it. You can develop enough internal stability that your needs do not spill into every interaction as emotional signals others can read instantly. Many manipulative people are not brilliant. They are merely attentive. They notice who is hungry. They notice who wants to be chosen, who fears exclusion, who cannot bear silence, who becomes eager too early, who overinvests after small rewards, who apologizes for existing, who rushes to prove value, who mistakes minimal attention for deep connection. Then they structure the dynamic around that hunger. This is especially dangerous in modern relationships. The person who feels empty often reveals their need through constant availability, emotional overexposure, rapid attachment, or obsessive reassurance seeking. They tell the other person how special they are too early. They confess fear of losing them before anything stable has been built. They make their emotional dependence visible before trust has been tested. This creates a dangerous imbalance. The other person now knows exactly how much power their presence holds, and many people, once aware of their power over you, begin using it consciously or unconsciously. The antidote is not pretending to need nothing. The antidote is building a life that makes your need less acute. A disciplined inner world, a schedule, a purpose, financial structure, emotional regulation, standards, friends who are not temporary substitutes for your loneliness, work that gives direction, solitude that no longer feels like punishment. The stronger your relationship to yourself becomes, the less likely you are to leak hunger into every room. A person with self-possession can still want deeply, but they do not collapse around desire. They can care without begging. They can pursue without chasing blindly. They can negotiate without broadcasting desperation. They can love without becoming easy to control. They can ask without making themselves small. One of the great errors people make is believing that emotional honesty requires the full public display of need. It does not. Mature honesty is calibrated. It knows timing. It knows proportion. It knows that desire, shown with dignity, invites mutuality, while need, shown without restraint, often invites exploitation. There are moments when revealing need is appropriate inside committed relationships, with honorable allies, with people who have proven depth and goodwill. But even then, it must be accompanied by self-respect. I value this is different from I cannot survive without this. This matters to me is different from you now own my emotional equilibrium. The first communicates sincerity. The second transfers power. Watch the people who move effectively through difficult environments. They rarely reveal the full extent of what they need, not because they are insincere, but because they know the world tests exposed hunger. They know that visible desperation attracts predators, opportunists, and those who enjoy being chased, so they cultivate composure. They reduce dependency where possible. They protect bargaining power by ensuring that no single source of approval, income, affection, or stability becomes so central that its loss can be used to control them. Your need is not shameful, but it becomes dangerous when displayed before trust, structure, or alternatives exist. The wiser path is to meet your deepest needs through discipline first, and relationship second. Then when you engage the world, you do so from choice rather than compulsion, and choice is power. The fourth thing you should never share freely is your exact fear. Fear is perhaps the most precise instrument of control. If someone knows what you fear most, they know where your boundaries are likely to break. They know what threat, real or implied, will make you submit, retreat, overreact, lie, flatter, overcompensate, or stay where you should leave. Fear reveals the shape of your captivity. Not all fear is dramatic. It is not always fear of violence or catastrophe. Often it is social. Fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of failure, fear of humiliation, fear of being alone, fear of looking weak, fear of missing out, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing others, fear of losing status, fear of not being enough. These fears govern far more human behavior than people admit. They shape who you obey, who you tolerate, what you avoid, what you perform, and what parts of yourself you hide. When your fear is visible, your behavior becomes easier to steer. A manipulative employer does not need to threaten you directly if they know you are terrified of instability. A controlling partner does not need to become openly cruel, as they know your fear of abandonment will make you overcorrect at the first sign of distance. A socially dominant group does not need to attack you outright if they know your fear of exclusion will make you compromise your values just to remain inside the circle. This is why the strongest people do not necessarily lack fear. They have simply learned not to reveal it in raw form to untested people. They work on it privately. They study it. They reduce its power through discipline. but they do not hand it over as operational intelligence. Machiavelli understood fear from both sides. He analyzed how rulers use it, how subjects respond to it, and how appearances shape behavior in political life. But the deeper lesson is psychological. Whoever can define the thing you most want to avoid acquires influence over your decisions. If your greatest fear is being seen as incompetent, you will become easy to pressure with status. If your greatest fear is being unloved, you will become easy to sway with intermittent affection. If your greatest fear is social shame, you will become highly governable by the opinions of mediocre people. This is not abstract. You can see it everywhere. The employee who never asks for fair compensation because they fear being replaced. The friend who laughs at disrespect because they fear becoming the difficult one. The partner who accepts emotional inconsistency because they fear being alone. The creative person who never publishes their work because they fear public judgment. The leader who avoids necessary confrontation because they fear disapproval more than decline. In each case, the fear is the chain. Once others see the chain clearly, they can pull it. That is why inner work is essential to power. Stoicism is so often misunderstood as emotional suppression, when in reality, it is the disciplined examination of what controls you. The Stoic does not pretend fear does not exist. The Stoic asks whether the feared thing deserves mastery over the soul. They train perception. They distinguish between what can be controlled and what must be endured. They reduce the emotional blackmail of outcomes. In doing so, they become harder to manipulate because fewer things can threaten their center. Imagine how different your life becomes when your fear is not visible leverage, when you are no longer so afraid of being disliked that anyone can control you with disapproval, when you are no longer so afraid of solitude that anyone can keep you in limbo, when you are no longer so afraid of financial discomfort that anyone can buy your silence, when you are no longer so afraid of imperfection that anyone can stop your action through imagined humiliation. At that point, you do not become reckless, you become free. This is why your exact fear should be guarded until you are certain the listener is safe, mature, and not invested in dominating you. To many people confess their fears in the language of intimacy, then later wonder why those fears began subtly shaping every dynamic. The answer is simple. Knowledge alters leverage. Some people will never weaponize your fear directly. Instead, they will structure conditions around it. They will become unpredictable if you fear loss. They will act disappointed if you fear judgment. They will create urgency if you fear missing out. They will withhold clarity if you fear uncertainty. They will place you in comparative environments if you fear inadequacy. They may not even be fully conscious of what they are doing, but human beings are remarkably quick at sensing where influence works. The solution is not emotional dishonesty. The solution is emotional mastery. Know your fears better than anyone else does. Name them privately. Study their roots. Expose them to reason. Challenge them through action. Let courage become skill rather than mood. Then, if you ever choose to reveal them, you do so from a position of awareness rather than helplessness, because the fear you have mastered cannot be used against you in the same way. Once you have faced a thing enough times, it stops functioning as a hidden lever. It becomes part of your known terrain. But until then, treat it as sensitive intelligence, because that is exactly what it is. The fifth thing you should never share with careless people is the full extent of your success, your money, or your private advantages. Nothing changes human behavior faster than perceived imbalance. The moment people believe you have more than they expected, more money, more access, more opportunity, more influence, more competence, more momentum, the emotional atmosphere shifts. Sometimes it shifts upward into admiration, but often it shifts sideways into envy, competition, suspicion, hidden resentment, or silent recalibration. The same people who were comfortable with you when you seemed ordinary, they become subtly different once your advantages become undeniable. This is one of the most painful lessons of adulthood. Many people can support your dreams in theory. Fewer can tolerate your elevation in reality. They can cheer for the idea of your success as long as it remains distant, abstract, and uncertain. But once it becomes concrete, once your life begins to expand beyond the psychological boundaries they assigned you, their support is tested. That is why wise people are discreet about money, influence, and access. They understand that transparency is not always neutral. It changes perception. It alters expectations. It invites assumptions. It creates emotional mathematics in the minds of others. People begin wondering what you can do for them, why you do not do more for them, whether you think you are better than them, whether you deserve what you have, whether your success exposes their excuses, whether staying close to you can benefit them, or whether seeing you win is now too uncomfortable to bear. Machiavelli would have seen this clearly. Wealth and strength must be managed not only in material terms, but in perceptual terms. The world reacts not just to what you possess, but to what others believe you possess, and those beliefs affect loyalty, alliances, danger, and social positioning. There is a reason some old money families keep details vague. There is a reason certain high-level operators appear more ordinary than they are. There is a reason some successful people drive modestly, speak cautiously, and avoid displaying every marker of access. It is not always insecurity. Sometimes it is wisdom. Exposure invites attention. Attention invites projection. Projection invites complication. Money, in particular, distorts relationships with brutal efficiency. If people know you have it, some begin to expect rescue. Others become performatively humble around you. Some begin competing. Some become opportunistically helpful. Some secretly hope for your decline, because it would restore emotional balance. Even those who mean well may start relating to you through your resources, rather than through your personhood. The conversation is no longer clean. Need enters, comparison enters, calculation enters. And it is not just money. It is competence. It is proximity to influential people. It is privileged information. It is opportunities others do not have. It is private momentum. The more you display these things, the more you trigger the insecure parts of those around you. That does not mean you should hide your life in shame. It means you should understand the psychological consequences of making your advantages too visible too early, too often, or to the wrong audience. Social media has made this problem worse. People now feel pressure to perform success constantly, as if every win must be documented, every upgrade must be posted, every expensive experience must be converted into visible proof. But proof for whom? And at what cost? The